Hi, I want to talk to you about your writing assignment. That's right, we're to that point in this quarter. And so just these 4 steps of this writing assignment and your exam reviews, and we'll be done with the accumulative. So let's look and see what it is. Your assignment is to interview a historical character. You need to choose someone, and I'll put a list of some possibilities. You need to choose someone who's had an impact on the course of history, on art, literature, music, science, politics, okay? Any of these things. Someone who died at least 50 years ago, so that you have to travel back in time to a different era to interview that person. Imagine that you are a time-traveling reporter who goes back in time and interviews a historical character. Choose someone who died at least 50 years ago who made an impact on art, science, or the course of history. Write a manuscript of your interview with this person. I'm going to also attach an example of a manuscript of an interview just like the kind that I'm asking you to write. For your pre-writing, you need to find out the answers to these questions. You will have to look online probably, because I'm guessing that whoever you choose, you will not just know the answers to all of these questions. And this person needs to be someone I've heard of. If this person does not speak English, so for example, if you choose Galileo, he will not speak English. You need to just pretend that they speak English, or that you have some kind of high-tech sci-fi interpreter like they have on Star Trek movies. I don't know. But anyway, it's going to be in English and not in like Vulcan. Number 1, when did this person live? Okay. What was his or her name, and what did people call him or her? So the example that we have that I'm going to attach is an interview of Queen Elizabeth, I think Queen Elizabeth II, or maybe the first. Anyway, but people called her Your Majesty. And of course she had a name, not just Queen Elizabeth, and you could find out what that name is. Why was this person important? Okay, what was his or her greatest accomplishment? All right, so if you chose Michelangelo, then this person was important because of his contribution, mainly because of his contribution to art. And his greatest accomplishment, you could say maybe the painting of the ceiling in the Sistine Chapel in Rome. There are several sculptures that are very important that he did, that kind of thing. Yeah, so just to give you an example. Number 4, what other well-known people might this person have known? Okay, so in the example that I gave, it's possible that Queen Elizabeth would have known William Shakespeare because they lived in the same time in the same city. Now, William Shakespeare was not a higher class person, meaning that he was not a royal, he did not have a lot of money, so maybe he didn't run in the same circles as Queen Elizabeth, but they could have known each other. Number 5, what was or might have been a favorite pastime of his or hers? Did this person play cards? Did this person go hunting? You know, what was one of the things that he would have liked to do? And what's something else interesting to know about him or her? Okay, so like for example, Thomas Jefferson was a very famous person in American history, and he also spoke French. Had spent part of his time living in France. So that's something that not everybody knows about Thomas Jefferson. So just answer these questions. You do not have to write your answers in complete sentences. You can just write a phrase or a word, whatever will answer this question, that you can come back to that information later and use it in your rough draft. Speaking of your rough draft, In the same style as the example, write your 200-word manuscript. So 200 words. Count. This is the 1, 2, 3, like that. 200-word manuscript. Each person must speak at least 5 times. In the interview that I'm going to attach for you, I think that the interviewer spoke 6 times and Queen Elizabeth spoke 5 times. And what you need to do for the word count is count all of the words that the interviewer says and all of the words that the interviewee says. And there should be around 200, minimum 200. Really, that's not that many. Include the information from your pre-writing. So you go back to your answers here and somehow include it in your writing. Now, some of these things you may not be able to get in there. Like when I read this interview that I'm going to attach for you of Queen Elizabeth, they didn't include her entire name, but the person that wrote it did. The interviewer did call her Your Majesty. You should have a different voice for that person than for yourself. People in the past did not talk the same way. And in the interview with Queen Elizabeth, she refers to herself like we and us because that's traditional for the royal family in England, that they refer to themselves with the plural pronouns. It's a little weird to me, but that's what they do. Rough draft will be on style, so you have to do it in the same style as what I'm attaching. Number of times you and your interviewee speak, at least 5 times each, and number of words, minimum 200. The style will be like, you'll have an indication of who's talking. Probably would be fine just to use initials. So like, say your name is Raul Fulano, then it would be RF, and then your interviewee is Mahatma Gandhi, so his initials would be MG, like that. And at the beginning, just like with any other news report type thing, interview, you will need to very, very briefly say who you are and who the other person is that you're going to be interviewing. And at the end, you'll need to like have a closing sign off. That's all the time we have for now. Back to you. Something like that. So I think I'm going to go ahead and read this example to you out loud. So maybe you'll kind of get a little bit of a gist of what I'm asking you to do. So the title of this is The Interview of a Lifetime. You can use the same title. You can put your own title, whatever. And this person's initials are JB, and he interviews Queen Elizabeth and uses QE for the initials to say who's speaking. And you'll see what I'm talking about if you will open the attachment. Okay. This is Johnny Babcock, time traveling reporter for Time Travel Network News. I'm in Windsor, England. It's 1600, and I have been granted an interview with Queen Elizabeth herself. Your Majesty, would you mind answering a few questions? It would be our pleasure. What do you want to know? Well, I'm interested in your place in history. Some would say that you are one of the greatest rulers in English history. Do you think so? We certainly would never state it quite so bluntly, but our reign has been long and it has been marked by significant achievements. Your Majesty, why do you say our instead of my reign? You don't have a king, do you? No, we have never married, but since we represent the people and the land of England as well as ourselves, the person named Elizabeth, it is common for the monarch to use we, not I. I see. What do you think is the greatest accomplishment of England under your rule? It has to be the destruction of the Spanish Armada. If our fleet had failed to defeat the ships of Philip II, England would have lost the war with Spain. The English people's freedom would have ended then and there. Instead, our lands prospered and we became a great world power. what do you do for fun? We are very interested in the plays of Shakespeare, fellow. In fact, we are going to one now, and we must not be late. You've been very generous with your time, Your Majesty. Thank you, and enjoy the play. Okay, so that is the end of that interview. And I know that was not a British accent. I was just trying to make my voice different as the Queen than as the interviewer. I know, silly. But, so, this is the kind of thing I'm asking you to do for your writing assignment. And I will give you as much help as I possibly can. Follow these directions. If you do not see these directions, then you will probably not know what to do for your pre-writing or your rough draft. Please follow the directions on the board. Thank you. Happy writing.